5G is the new arms race, and China is winning. Is it too late for the US? This is America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. We're in the midst of a modern-day arms race, only instead of nuclear weapons technology, it's information technology. And that includes 5G wireless technology. Right now, China is winning, but the Trump administration is trying to give the US an edge.
The race to 5G is a race America must win.
Wow, it seems he's not very enthusiastic. Definitely not build-a-wall levels of excitement. Maybe that's because most of us don't really know what 5G is.
We were 4G and everybody was saying we have to get 4G. And then they said, before that, we have to get 3G. And now we have to get 5G, and 5G is a big deal. And that's going to be there for a while. And I guess at some point we'll be talking to you about number 6. What do you think? Do you think that's true, Asia?
I'm pretty sure 6G is the matrix. But back to 5G, which is the future of wireless internet. The G stands for generation. So we're about to enter the 5th generation, which is unfortunately not the name of the new Star Trek reboot. But with 5G, wireless speeds will be 100 times faster than they are today. Imagine what we could do with that. Ugh, so many cat photos. And that only scratches the surface. No, stop that, no more cat photos. What I meant is, 10 years ago, the introduction of 4G gave us an entire new economy, with apps like Uber and Spotify and Snapchat, none of which have made any profit. But that doesn't matter as long as you're a disruptor. And now, 5G will disrupt the world in ways we have yet to fully imagine. It will create what's called the Internet of Things, with billions of connected devices. It's what's going to enable self-driving cars and virtual reality, and bring it all together into smart cities that link traffic, energy, communications, even municipal systems like waste disposal, that could reduce traffic, cut emissions, and save money. As the Washington Post says, whichever country succeeds at developing 5G early and on a massive scale will reap dividends and shape the global economy for years. According to National Economic Council Director Larry Kudlow, 5G could bring about almost $400 billion in economic gains as well as nearly 2 million new jobs. Obviously, there's a dark side to all this, and it's not too many stupid cat photos, because cats will be able to directly connect to the internet, taking over our cheeseburgers, our minds, and the entire world.
You can has cheeseburger. You can has, you can has, you can has.
That is a dark vision of our future, people. But the other dark side is that we will all be producing unheard of amounts of user information. Privacy could become as silly and outdated a notion as Leonardo da Vinci's helicopter. You didn't add a tail rotor, you fool! Your helicopter's gonna spin out of control. And just the way modern helicopters are unimaginably advanced, and also potentially dangerous, imagine the kind of personal information a billion connected smart devices could collect and sell to advertisers, or give to the government, or give to a foreign government. And that's one reason 5G is a national security concern for the US. According to this report, as of last year, China led the world in 5G technology, with the US in 3rd place. USA number 3! That just doesn't have as nice a ring to it. A big reason for our falling behind is that the United States and many other Western countries have no 5G vendors. Here's former Australian Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull.
How did we get to the point that in this area of critical importance, this critical enabling technology, there is not one Western European in the sense of 5G, Five Eyes or close allies vendor of 5G technology? If you're at&t and Verizon, you've got 4 potential vendors, 2 Chinese and 2 Scandinavian. That is crazy.
In other words, the market was left wide open for Chinese companies with questionable links to the Chinese Communist Party, companies like Huawei and ZTE. The United States has banned these companies from government contracts and has encouraged countries around the world to do the same. Australia has also banned them from getting involved in its domestic 5G network, and some other countries have followed suit. The European Union is concerned too, but it has largely ignored those warnings. The founder of Huawei, Ren Zhengfei, is a veteran in China's military and rose through the ranks as a military IT researcher. But don't worry, because he says Huawei is a completely private company.
Have you ever given any information to the Chinese government in any way, shape, or form?
For the past 30 years, we have never done that, and the next 30 years to come, we will never do that.
Except experts told CNBC that Huawei would have no choice but to hand over network data to the Chinese government if Beijing asked for it, because of espionage and national security laws in the country. Those laws are like the Patriot Act on steroids. Evil steroids. But the Secretary General of the UN agency in charge of regulating the internet and telecoms is siding with Huawei. He says those fears of Huawei being a national security concern are politically motivated. The head of that agency, by the way, just so happens to be from China. Huawei has filed a lawsuit against the US government over the ban. Huawei is complaining that US law prohibits Congress from singling out a company or individual for punishment without a trial. Which is ironic because the Chinese government singles out foreign companies all the time and punishes them arbitrarily. Of course, the Chinese government prefers the term laws with Chinese characteristics. But the Trump administration has been pushing to make the United States a competitive 5G power. The president of CTIA, a trade association that represents wireless communications in the U.S., says the U.S. is now tied with China for 5G readiness. Their report says the U.S. has made impressive strides in the 5G race, thanks to the commitment of the administration, Congress, and the Federal Communications Commission to smart policies that unlock the power of free market competition. AT&T and Verizon now have fledgling 5G networks. T-Mobile and Sprint say they'll have their own later this year. And one Verizon phone from Motorola supports 5G right now. It's this one, which is not an iPhone, so forget it. But the free market competition between AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, and Sprint is the opposite of the Chinese model. In China, 5G, like pretty much everything else, is deeply tied to the government. And there's been a debate in this country as to whether the U.S. should do the same. But in a speech last week, Trump reaffirmed that the U.S. would follow a private sector model.
In the United States, our approach is private sector driven and private sector led. The government doesn't have to spend lots of money.
To that end, the FCC announced the largest spectrum auction in our nation's history. Spectrum refers to the airwaves networks use to provide internet to devices. That auction is December 10th, so be sure to bid on some of those airwaves. There will also be a $20 billion fund to promote the growth of 5G networks and broadband in rural areas that often get left out. Although I should mention here that it's possible that America's slower development of 5G could be a good thing. Some scientists have been asking if there are health concerns associated with 5G electromagnetic fields, especially because it requires such a large number of transmitters. I haven't looked into those issues, but one city in California has already banned 5G. Now that could be just one of those Northern California things. On the other hand, 5G could end up melting your eyeballs, and then Northern California will have the last laugh. But as for me, I'm still a firm believer in wanting all the things right now, so give me 5G. And your cheeseburgers, before the cats get their grubby little paws on them. So, what do you think? Leave your comments below. And did you know America Uncovered is supported mainly by viewers like you? YouTube demonetizes controversial videos, so we rely on your support through the crowdfunding website patreon.com/AmericaUncovered. As a way of saying thanks to our supporters, I answer your questions on the show. Today's question comes from David Schwimmerer. Chris, will Amazon help the CCP by modifying their package delivery drones with super AI facial recognition and scalpel fingers, allowing instant organ harvesting from fleeing dissidents, while effectively returning packages as well as delivering them, all while broadcasting the horrors down on the cowering masses it passes, along with occasional advertisements. Or do you think Alexa will become a merciless super entity by then, supplanting her CCP masters and keeping the snatched bounty for her own amusement, creating a scaled-up Frankenstein-style mountain-sized organ which sounds like a billion souls shrieking from resonant membrane walls made of human faces, as she keeps repeating that creepy laugh you hear sometimes? I'm a little afraid right now, but I appreciate your imagination. I think you should write a book, a science fiction book, hopefully with an emphasis on the word fiction. Thanks for your question. And thanks to everyone else for watching and supporting the show. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time on America Uncovered.